Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to YoungMartin'sReels. Today's project is going to be this Daiwa Procaster PM10S. And when I first got this reel, it wouldn't move at all. You couldn't turn it. You couldn't do anything with it. It was completely frozen up. It's still pretty stiff, but what I found was that the line guide was hanging up here. And if you crank this around a little more, you can see a little bit of what was going on. See this rust right here? And let me see if I can focus in a little better on that. All right, you see that rust? Well, that was all the way up and down this entire thing. And what I did, all I did was took a blade and run it up and down, scraping the rust until I finally got enough of it off to allow it to come up and down. We're gonna take that off altogether and see if we can do a little bit of work on it and clean it up. So we're gonna take this bad boy apart and get it going and see what we can do with it. All right, the first thing we're going to do is take off this handle, and you can still see there's even some corrosion in here on this screw. Like I said, I didn't take this thing apart. All I did was scraped on that front a little bit, sprayed. I did put this in a Ziploc bag and sprayed it with a little WD-40 and let it sit for a while. As a matter of fact, this is January, and I got this reel back in August, so it's set for a long time soaking, trying to hopefully get some of this stuff to break loose on it. Yeah, that doesn't want to break. So let's move over to this one. There we go. And we're going to clean all this up and see if we can make this a functional reel again. I'm not sure. It may be too far gone, but we are going to try. And you see all the corrosion and such that's up under there. Okay, yeah, it looks pretty bad. And all we're gonna do is just kind of scrub around a little bit and see if we can get some of that off prior to taking it apart. There we go, that cleaned up rather nicely. Okay, we're gonna take this off first, and let's see. 10 millimeter. All right, we've taken that off, but if you look, there is a clip right here, and we're going to be wanting to take that clip off also. So let's see if I can do it with just my fingernails, or one fingernail and one screwdriver. And I'll put my thumb over it to keep it from popping off and shooting out across the room. There we go. That popped it loose. I'm going to remove that C-clip. There it is. And that actually is a C-clip, not an E-clip. And now, there should be, I think there's a washer under here. There is. There we go. Took the washer off. There's the washer. And I'm going to zoom back out again now, because I'm just a little bit too close. Everything kept bouncing out of range. All right, now this handle, there we go. I was gonna crank the drag knob on it and see if I could pop the handle off, but we got it off. And it seems to be in pretty good shape, other than a little bit of corrosion here and there, a little blistering of the paint. Set that over there, and then we've got our tension washer. Let's see how that cleans up. All right, the tension washer cleaned up nicely. I might add a little bit of bend to it, but I don't think so. I think it's probably okay. All right, we'll set that over there. And now I could start to unscrew this drag adjuster, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my wire brush and I'm gonna run it across the threads a little bit and see if I can get some of that dirt and corrosion out of there prior to unscrewing this. I'll shoot a little bit of WD-40 on it, and then I'm going to wipe it off with a rag. And now we'll come back and see if we can unscrew it, because now the threads look much nicer. Okay. All right. That's got the drag off, or drag knob off. Yeah, see, there's still junk in the threads on that. We'll clean it up more before we put it back. All right, we've got it to that point. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is unscrew these two housing screws on the side, and then this entire assembly should come off, which it did. All right, and we are going to set that over to the side. And we're going to come back to here, and let's go ahead and pop out the, well, we're trying to. Okay, that wants to stay in, which means there's probably a clip up underneath this side. So we're going to leave that on for a moment and take this side panel off of this side. Okay, we're going to go ahead and adjust this magnetic balance over here. We're going to put it right in the middle. And I think that will help to get it in the right position when we put it back. All right, I'm going to break each of these loose with a common, and then I'm going to come back with the Phillips to remove them. All right, this one looks like it may be different from the rest. We're going to find out. It does go into this post here. So let's take them out, take a look at them. Okay, that's a very small machine screw. Let's see if the rest of them are like that. All right. And I'm going to try to compare them to each other. Yep, they're both very tiny machine screws. So let's finish this off. All right, all 5 screws appear to be identical. We're going to put them in a whole pile over to the side, and we're going to remove this side case. At least that's what I'm planning on doing. There we go. And with that came the spool. Okay, so the spool still doesn't want to come off. So it may be time to give it a little tug, and I did. And it did not want to come out of this bearing. All right. And that's actually a bushing, it's not a bearing. Now, if we really needed to, we could take this little clip out right here. Let me show you. This little clip wire here allows you to pop this loose, and then you can press this bearing out. But we're not going to. I don't see any real need to. Everything in here seems okay. Let's take that ring off. Everything there. We got a little cleanup to do in there, but aside from that, we're going to put a little oil in there and wipe this off, and I think this part's going to be fine. All right, so all right, it turns out this actually is a bearing here. It's a plastic and steel bearing, it appears. Either that or it's black, but you can see it's rolling. So that bearing is okay, but we are cleaning it out, getting all the dirt and grime out of it. I'm going to give it another shot down inside there just to make sure that the ball bearings are clean. And then the Q-tip will soak up any of the excess penetrating oil. And once we've got that to where we feel it's clean, we'll go ahead and give it a shot of real oil. Okay, let's look at the other side of this now. Now, it's not really going to matter so much that this is a little sticky on this side, because it actually is fitting into a bearing. And being in a bearing, the bearing itself is turning, so we don't want this to turn inside the bearing. We want it to turn the bearing. There we go. But the spool on this thing is in really good shape. And we'll set that over to the side because we still have the main frame to do. We've got to do all of this. So let's deal with this. We're going to start off right here on the worm gear. Okay, with all the dirt cleaned off, we can see that we have an E-clip. Okay, we're going to pop that E-clip out. There we go. E-clip is out. Under the E-clip is a washer. All right, under the washer is the rest of the thing. Okay, and okay, it's not going to come out yet because we still got to get the worm pawl out. So let's start off with that. Okay, take that out. Now we should be able to take out the pawl. Except the pawl's kind of jammed. It doesn't want to come out. So let's try and see if the pawl is steel or made of something else. We'll try our magnet trick. And it is not steel. So let's try tapping it. And it is not coming down at all. So we're going to have to try to get a better grab on it. And this is, yeah, this is probably why this was still so stiff, because this pawl did not want to come out. It was jammed in there. So we're going to clean this up real good and we'll reinstall it. Okay, with the pawl out, now this assembly here will come out through the side over here, like this. I'll set that down. Now we have the carrier for this, or the sleeve for the worm gear. It's coming straight out the side also, and it's filthy dirty as well. Now we've got this pin that did not want to allow this to slide, and it does not want to move. But we've got, it's still so gritty under there where all that sand and rust was. So I really want to take this out if I can. Let me try to see if I can pop this out. Yeah, there we go. That popped it out. Okay. There we go. And now we've got the carrier out. And I'm going to take a few minutes to scrub all of this up, get it as clean as possible. And in a minute, we'll be back and starting to try to reassemble everything. All right, I had to use some somewhat extreme measures on this shaft to get it clean. And what I did is I chucked it up in my drill. And I ran it on a piece of sandpaper. And it's still slightly pitted, but I believe it will slide easily now. Alright, I'm going to flip it over the other way and run it one more time. Alright. I believe that we have that clean enough that it will slide once this piece is cleaned and lubricated. Right now it's still full of dirt inside, so I'm going to go back to cleaning. All right, we're going to try now to start reassembling this. The frame is as clean as it's going to get. It's never going to be a collectible reel, but what we were shooting for here is a good solid operational reel is what we're going for. So we're going to start off with this sleeve right here. This sleeve is going to slide in from the right hand side. Now when it goes in, it has to go through this carrier assembly. So we're going to turn this so that the sleeve, if you look at the sleeve, it's going to go in here through this big hole, and then this small hole right here has to line up with this. So that's the direction this is all going to be sitting in. Okay, so we'll set it in a little bit. We'll bring this in, push it through the carrier like so, and then get it into the hole on the opposite side. And then you want to rotate this around to where that slot right there lines up like so, and your hole is at the bottom, because it'll, if you twist it around, it'll line up the same way that way, but your hole's not at the bottom, and that's not going to work. So bring it around this way, hole at the bottom, and the slot on this side, like so. Once you've done that, this little keeper here, slide it in the end. Try not to drop it. Slide it in the end, and it should fit down flush like that, locking this in place. All right. Now, we're going to rotate this carrier around to where this bar can come through. It's going to go through the carrier around over to the other side. And this is the part that was rusted up so bad that it wouldn't allow it to move. Okay, well, it's no longer rusted like that. Okay, this is all trying to slide out now. Let's get it back into position. A balancing act trying to keep everything in position at the same time. All right, next we are going to install the worm gear. Now the worm gear is going to come through. There's a slot on this end of it over here that C-clip goes into. Okay, so it's going to come through this way. Just like this. We're going to keep this in place. Slide this worm gear in, bring it through. Make sure that this stays locked in over here, like so. There. And all of these, none of these want to stay in place right now. Okay, like so. Now, we're going to come back, put this washer on. And put the E-clip on. While you're holding everything balanced together. And I'm going to cheat just a little bit. And clip this on like so. All right, that's going to hold that together. Now the bar is going to come over here. Come on, get in the hole. There we go. Hold that together. And the only thing left that's got to go in at this point is our worm pawl. Now, we have done a lot of cleaning and scrubbing on this gear, and now we want to oil it good. Because all this has to slide good. And right now it's sliding very well. But we want it to stay that way. So we're going to shoot some oil into the hole for the worm gear. We're going to slip the pawl in to the worm gear hole. The pawl. With the blade running front to back. Drop it in. And now just put a little tension on it. And let's see if we can rotate it around a little bit. There we go, and get it to drop in. Okay, once it's dropped into the slot, you should be able to take the retainer and screw it down gently. And again, everything wants to fall out, but once it's all locked in place, it can't fall out anymore. Okay, screw this down like so. Now, when this rotates, it should go back and forth. And it does. All right, that's going to be driven off of this gear right here. Okay, that's going to go on that slot. All right, so we got all that back in there. Let's go ahead now, in order to help hold all this in place, and let's put our side cover back on. All right, when we go to put this piece in, it's got this little notch right here. Well, that little notch has to fit in that little slot right there. So let's go ahead and do that first. Let's get that into the slot. And that will then hold all that where it belongs. And I did let this pop. Anytime you sit this down against this shaft, it's going to try to lift up and out. There. Okay, so we've got the black plastic piece in first now. And now, let's set this back in place. There we go. That's what it needed. We still don't have this post in, but we'll put it in just a moment. Let's go ahead and get 2 of the micro screws back in to hold all this together. Now we're going to put this post back in. Slide it up in there. And now we'll hold our finger on it. Set our micro screw in place. And now we're going to add oil to this post to help keep it from corroding again. There we go. Well, that was a little bit complicated to get done. We're going to put a little oil on the sleeve itself because the carrier has to ride on that sleeve, and it's no longer as smooth as it probably once was due to all the corrosion and grit that rubbed against it. Let's go ahead and put the last 2 screws in to this side case. That's got the frame done, except for putting the spool back in, and there it is. I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning right here. That looks better. Now we're going to move over to the business end of this reel. First off, we've got a bearing right here. Let's see if that bearing turns. It's turning, but barely. Okay, so let's give it a shot of WD-40 in there. Let's try spinning it around a little bit. It's gonna need some more cleaning. Okay, so we'll try to get to that from the other side and see how we do. All right, on this side, we've got 2 screws we're gonna take out. All right. Now we're gonna try to push this through. And of course it doesn't want to go. So we're gonna open up a small amount of persuasion on it. There we go. Lift that out. Okay, this needs a little bit of cleaning. Fortunately, the screws are held good and tight, but yeah, we definitely need to scrub that up. And let's take a look at our gear setup. Okay, we got these 2 springs. We're going to take those off first and set them over to this side so they don't get lost. All right, those are our yoke springs. Now let's take a look and see if we can remove the yoke with the main gear in. And it makes it difficult, so let's leave it in. All right, we're going to take the main gear out instead. So we're going to lift that out, and the anti-reverse over here is snagging and lifting, so we're going to take it out with the anti-reverse together on it. All right, now we've got that off the post. Now we can pull the whole thing out. Now underneath here, we'll take a look. See these pins? Now let's get in closer. All right, see these pins right here? Now, they're difficult to see because they're very dirty. But those pins are going to push against this post right here, this lever, and reset this. There. Got to watch that spring, it can come off. Okay, now we're going to take the anti-reverse claw off, and it needs to be cleaned, but it's in good shape. It's still together at the end, which is what you want to see. There's not much clearance in between. We'll set that over to the side. Now we're going to take this sleeve off here. And what fell out here? Oh, it's our gear. All right, that's the one for the, that one would have gone here. Okay, and once we took that apart, that just fell out. Okay, now we've got a keyed tension washer on here. Take that off. Now what's next? Next is another keyed tension washer and a non-keyed flat washer, shim washer. And then we're going to slide this off. There is so much grit in this thing. All right, bring this down, pull it out. On the bottom side of here, we have a washer here. Shim washer. Actually, it should be, it's a keyed washer. I would have thought that there would be a hard washer right here. Maybe it's still stuck to the, yeah, there it is, stuck to the bottom right there. Okay, so they put this one on here so that it wasn't hitting in the holes on the clicker cog. All right, so we'll take this keyed washer off. That's a larger one. And then we'll take the clicker cog off. And remember, if you look at the teeth, they're facing counterclockwise. Okay, we're gonna clean that up. And there's our sleeve. We'll clean that up. Now, when we get over here to our gear, there's our hard washer. That's gonna sit on top of that metal washer. And it looks like there may only be one washer inside this, the hard washer, the metal washer, and then under that it's going to be, and this is probably glued itself on it. The last one of these Daiwa baitcasters that I did like this, that washer was really glued to the gear. There we go. Okay, but it's still pliable. We just need to clean it and reinstall it back in here and clean all this mess out of the gear. All right. We'll get all that cleaned out. Let's back to the plate here. And there we have this is our gear for driving the level wind feature on the worm gear. This is what fits on the other end of this right here. This will go on here like so, and that's what will drive that when you wind it. Okay, but right now it needs a serious cleaning. We'll set it to this side. Now we should be able to take our yoke out. It's very sticky, so it should not be sticking like that. Okay, we're gonna clean that up. And now let's take a look at this part. Now this is a part that I recommend not taking apart. You can take it apart. If you look over here, these springs can be popped off, and you can take this E-clip out of here and take this on apart, but there's never a really good reason to do so. If you look, you can really get to everything on here. Even as dirty and nasty as this is, we can still get into it to clean it. So what I'm gonna do, just to prove it to you, is I'm going to clean this particular part on camera so that you can see that it is possible. Okay, I'm gonna back up just a little bit. All right, now we're gonna spray some WD-40 on the whole thing. All right, we let it soak for a few minutes, and then we take a straight bristle brush. Now, this normally has much longer bristles, and I cut them off with a pair of diagonal cutters, wire cutters, just to shorten them, and it gives you a little more scrubbing power. And we're gonna scrub this up. let's push it in. I'll scrub a little under it. Okay, once we've scrubbed it, then we need to get all the old debris and stuff off. I like to use a Q-tip for that. Now, if you look, there's a little copper washer right here. You do not want to lose that copper washer. If you've ever watched any of the people who do these videos, they'll all tell you to make sure that you don't lose that, because if you do, if you don't have it in there, it causes all of this to bind. So make sure that you've got that little copper washer in. All right, that is perfectly clean enough to make this reel fully operational. Okay. Now let's clean the other side of this. Wipe it off good. And we want to make sure that that bearing is rolling. If it's not, this reel's not going to work very well. I believe it is, but I'm having difficulty seeing it. So it is not turning. Okay, so I want to make sure that it gets a chance to turn. So I jam these down on there. And we rotate it. Mostly it's just got some dirt in there, and we're trying to get the dirt out. Now we'll throw some more WD-40 in the hole, and let's roll it some more. If the balls in there have gotten rusted, then the only answer usually is going to be to replace the bearing. And trying to find that bearing would be rather difficult. I think we're going to pop that bearing out. We're going to take a look at it. Okay, we're going to take the little wire clip out first. And I'm going to go to the other side, and I'm going to see if I can't push that bearing out without damaging it. Now, it was determined that the bearing in this was bad, and I just ordered a new set of bearings for it, so I'm going to change out the bearings. Is the reel worth it? $12 for a set of bearings, that's not bad. Plus, it gives me extra bearings to have around here, so I'm okay with that. Well, it's been several days since I was working on this reel, and I'm back now. I was able to acquire new bearings for it. I bought these off of eBay. They are sealed bearings. They are 5 by 9 by 3 millimeter. And this is the original bearings that were in it. And I pulled the one that shattered when it came out, and it sent pieces flying everywhere. You saw me trying to push it out. And since I ordered new bearings, I went ahead and replaced both of them. And these are steel ball bearings. They're not, I believe that they're chromium steel. They're not stainless steel, and they are sealed. So that's what I'm going to replace these plastic with ball bearing bearings with. Here's the new one. Now, one thing I found when I popped the wire out of this one is that the wire went flying. And if you'll look, there's my spring finder right there. I was able to, and I had to pass it all over the whole room before I finally found that little wire. And it is tiny. Remember, that's remember the size of that bearing. So we're going to put this back together now. We're going to slip this bearing in from this side. Slide it down in there, and there's no need to oil it because it's a sealed bearing. I'll slide it down in there, and I found that you can usually press things down in there like that. Okay, now the only thing left to do is reinstall the wire, which hopefully I won't send it flying again. Okay, we're going to get started on one end, and then we're going to just kind of work our way around with it and get it back down into there, like so. All right, now the bearing has been replaced, and we are ready to reassemble. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little grease. We're going to put a little bit right here on the front of this ramp and a little here on the front of this ramp. And we'll put a little bit on this brass washer right there. And aside from that, there's not a whole lot of greasing that should be required. We're going to add some oil here under the plate and a little bit over here under the plates to allow them to slide in and out okay, like so. I add just a little bit more right here because I'm not sure it got up on there. Okay. Now it's time to start assembling. And all of this, I assembled it without the bearings last week, waiting for the bearings to come in. And so I'm going to take it apart real quick and clean the parts back up, and we'll do the reassembly. Okay, I think we've got it pretty well cleaned up now. We're ready to restart assembly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this sleeve right here. This is the sleeve for the drag washers. And I've cleaned inside it with a cotton swab, cleaned it all out nice and clean inside, and got it ready to go. And what we're going to do is on this post right here, we're going to put a little bit of oil. Now some people will put grease on this, but when it's coming from the factory and they want you to lubricate it, you're supposed to put drops of oil down through the end of it. So I'm going to start it out with oil, and I'm going to leave it at oil. Okay, we're going to spin that around a little bit, get it well lubricated, and now we're ready to start assembling. Now the first part that's going to go on here is going to be this clicker cog. Okay, remember these teeth are going to go to where they're facing towards the left across the top, and at the bottom you'll see that you've got your teeth. Those are going to be catching right here, right there. And that will push this back. First it's forward, and then when this comes back, it'll catch on there and push this back, which will reset the whole thing. Okay, so we're going to set this on. It's keyed, so it has to go down in the key position. All right, like so. And that locks it onto that shaft. Now what is missing off of this is our anti-reverse claw. So let's go ahead and lift this back up and set it in place. It goes like this so that it's on each side of that. And I see that there's a little bit of fuzz. All right, we'll get that out of there. And let's drop this down, bring it around, and we're going to sit that anti-reverse claw, and I put it on backwards. How about that? We're going to take it off, reverse it around. There we go. Now let's sit it on and bring it down. Get that hole to go over that post and drop it down in there like so. Now what's going to happen as this rotates, see how that, when it tries to backpedal, it drops back in. I like to put a little bit of oil or grease on this. That is a friction fit device, but I've always found that there seems to be enough friction still to make it still work, and yet it doesn't cause that metal to wear away. See, what happens is that metal right there will wear away if it's just plain metal on metal contact. So I like to add a little bit of lubricant, and if you put a little bit on the top, trust me, it's going to seep to the bottom. There we go. All right, we got that set. The next thing that's going to go on is this flat keyed metal washer here. Okay, it's keyed like so, and you got to sit it on just like that, and it drops down over top of those holes. Now when it drops over those holes, that's going to give this hard washer something to ride against. So that's what goes on next. Like so. All right, that way those holes in that clicker cog are not dragging on the softer drag material and tearing it up. Now we're going to put a little bit of drag washer grease on this. Now, can you use regular grease for this? Yes, you can. Drag washer grease just has some specific properties that are made to allow it to slide and add lubrication. So that's why we use it. All right, now comes the main gear. Now this main gear has no specific, you know what, I'm going to clean this out one more time. Stand by. Okay, we've got that main gear cleaned. And you're going to see these tarnished areas, and that's okay. They can stay tarnished. That's not going to hurt anything. It doesn't hurt the performance of it at all. We'll leave that alone. We're going to set this down now for a second because we got to go to the yoke. This is our yoke assembly. And if you look at the yoke, it has, they're hard to see. See these little ramp areas right here, the little 45-degree angle spots? All right, those are made to slide on these ramps right here. And what they're going to do is they're going to lift and lower this yoke assembly. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our pinion gear. We're going to set it in here. Now, let's go ahead and give it a little grease first. A little bit of grease in there. And let's put a little bit on each of these posts right here, which will help the yoke slide up and down on those posts. Then we're going to put our pinion gear into that, and this piece right here with the slot, that has to fit against the yoke, or sorry, the spool like so, because that'll come in and it will lock it to the spool when you are in non-free spool mode. And then when it comes up like that, it'll miss it and it'll spin. So this has to go down, this keyway. It goes down like so. Slide this in place like that. With that in place, we're ready for our main gear. Now our main gear has got to be greased along the teeth. And you notice I didn't put any on the pinion gear. It's because there's going to be plenty on this main gear to get the job done. All right, the outside of the gear has now been greased. We're going to slip it down onto this sleeve. Move it around. It's got to drop down. So far it has not done so. There we go. get it to slip down onto the shaft, like so. And see, as that rotates around, that's lubricating that pinion gear. We're going to back this back out now. All right, this is our drag washer. We're going to give it a little dip in some drag washer grease. Rub it down good, and then slip it in place. And we're going to take this large keyed washer and set it down over top of that, and it should fit down like so. With that done, we're getting there, folks. Next one to go on is going to be this solid washer. There's no bend to this one. It's straight. It goes straight on like so. Then you have these two keyed washers. All right. And these have a bend to them. They don't fit flushly together. And you can put them either nested or in opposing positions. I tend to like to put them nested, but it doesn't. I find that it doesn't really make that much difference. One way just gives you a little bit more torsion than the other way. Okay, and then it's going to go this plastic sleeve. And it's keyed also. Slide it down. That almost has things together. All right, our next item to go in is going to be this plastic washer for the worm gear. That's going to slip into here, and it meshes with the main gear, like so. And you can either grease it or not grease it. The choice is yours. Next, we've got these two yoke springs that we're going to slip in here and slide into place like so. And I believe at that point, we are ready to put the case back on. Remember how dirty this was before? Well, it looks much nicer now. We're going to slip this into place, slide it down. This is where our springs have got to line up with these posts right here. There we go. When you bring it down, make sure your springs are not trapped right there. Now we have these two tiny little Phillips screws. They're going to go here. At this point, we're kind of ready for our mini operational check. We should be able to rotate this now. All right. Hit the button. Well, that's not going to rotate until we add some drag. So we're going to spin the drag adjuster back on, and you've got to make sure that it is perfectly aligned when you screw it on, or it will cross thread. There we go. All right, now with some drag, we should be able to rotate this. Interesting. Sometime while I was doing the cleaning, I managed to let this spring pop off, and I didn't catch that it was off. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a hold of said little spring. There we go. And hooked it back up. Now, I'm going to tell you not to do what I just did. If you are going to have any kind of work done back on this, make sure to not do it with those springs in place, because it's so easy to send them flying. All right, let's go set this back in. sure that the springs are not under those posts again. All right, now let's perform our operational check. There we go. Button in, rotate it. Yeah, that spring wasn't there holding that lever over where it belonged. All right, there's our other new bearing on this side installed. And we're going to set the spool back inside. Now, when we go to do that, we're going to add a little bit of oil here. Not that that's supposed to spin there, because it's not. That's just to make it easier to slide in and out. And then on this end of the spool, we're going to put some oil, because that's going to slide through the pinion gear, and it's got to spin inside that pinion gear. So we want that to be able to move quite freely. All right, we're going to set the spool back in. There we go. Now, this side is going to drop back on. Align. Remember, it's got to line into that gear right there. So if the gear isn't properly aligned, go ahead and rotate it around so that it will properly align. There we go. That slides down. Tighten these two screws. A little bit of tweak with each one, a little bit tighter. There we go. Let's go ahead and put this drag star back on. And remember, if it's not going on freely, it's probably binding and it's cross threading. All right. We're going to put our tension spring back on. And we're going to put our handle back on. And our nut back on. Now you may be saying, hey, wait a minute, you forgot the washer and the C-clip. No, we haven't forgotten them. We're going to put those on after this. All right, now comes the fun part, trying to get this washer and C-clip back installed. The washer's easy. It fits right down over top of there like so. But then comes this little bitty C-clip, and he's a little more difficult. Now, you make sure that you don't do what I just did and get it caught under the washer. There we go. Get it over the top of the washer. Like so. And if you got grease on your fingers, it's probably going to want to stick to you. And it is so tiny that it wants to drop off the side. There we go. C-clip is installed. Hopefully we've got this tightened down properly to where the hole lines up for our lockdown. There we go. Let's back this out now. There you have the Daiwa Procaster PM10S with a new set of bearings, ready to go back and go fishing. Oh, look at the spin on that thing now. For such a lightweight spool, that's a pretty good spin up. Remember, it's got brand new sealed bearings. Let's see, do I have this? Probably tweak it just a hair tighter. There we go. So, Mario, you asked about this reel. I talked to Ken, and because of the condition that it was in, he's more than happy for us to get our money back out of it, which would be $5 for him and $10 for me for the bearings that I put in it. And so if you wish this reel, you can have it for $15, because that was what he was thinking he would ask for it. And that's about all he's going to get for it on eBay as since it's not overly attractive. But if you're interested in it, there it is, a $15 reel. And like I said, it's pretty nice. Let's check the drag. So far, no drag. Tighten it down. Oh yeah, it's got lots of drag. Okay, yes. So if you like the video, by all means, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. Tell me what you didn't like about it. And I'm just going to let you guys know, for the last 3 days, I have been getting my tail end kicked by this reel right here. This is the Shimano Bantam Black Magnum BKM 1002 reel. And something is messed up inside this reel, and I have been unable to figure it out yet. It is extremely tight. It doesn't want to rotate. And I think what's happened, I think somewhere along the way, somebody over-tightened the drag, and I think there's these pieces that sit inside there. You'll see them when I do this reel. Whether it ends up being a fail video or not, you'll see them. And I think what happened, I think they over-tightened the drag and crushed those cylinders inside there. And so we're going to see, I'm going to do some filing on those and see if I can get that fixed. But right now, this reel is a definite fail. I have taken it apart and put it back together at least 15 times. And I've been unable to make it happen. Fortunately, I had the schematics, so I was able to make sure that everything is assembled correctly. It is assembled correctly, so we're going to see what I can do with it. I'm not sure that's going to be the next reel you guys see. I may be messing with that thing for months to come. But I'd really like to fix it and get it working. If I can't, so be it. We'll turn it into a fail reel. And for now, that's Rick Stivers with the Young Martin's Reels, signing out.